What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Martial Arts Business Podcast brought to you by Legacy Martial Arts Consulting. This is our very first podcast, and I am super excited to have one of my most amazing friends, successful gym owner, one of my first clients as well, one of the OG clients of Legacy Martial Arts Consulting, Brendan Kalijundic. Welcome, Brendan, to the Martial Arts Business Podcast. What is up?
Not too much. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be your first guest, and let's get going.
All right. First, I want to hear kind of like how, you started your first gym. I obviously know your story. I'm sure a lot of your students don't even know your story of like how Kalsamrit got started and like the humble beginnings of it. Take us through it.
So, how it first started, I think I moved up to Ottawa 2008, 2009, something like that. And I was just at a point in my life where I was working at General Motors, had a good job there. I transitioned into the restaurant industry. I was managing a restaurant called Jack Astor's. And I was training the whole time, competing and training. And then I just decided I wanted a change of scenery. And an opportunity came up where I was given an opportunity to go work at the Canada Jack Astor's up in the Ottawa area. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go check it out, just a change of scenery, get away from some people that I was hanging around here with that might not have been the best influences. And I'm just like, I'm going to go to Ottawa, take a break, and just focus on training and working. And I moved up there and I checked out a couple gyms in the area that I wanted to train at, and I found the head location on Carling, and that's where I was training. Started training there, met you and a bunch of the other coaches, and a couple years in, then you guys opened a second location in Canada, and I'm like, well, sweet, this is right close to my work. And I remember going there to train, and classes were super small, which for a gym owner is probably not the best thing, but for me, I was loving it because it was like two guys in a class. I think I was training with your brother at the time, and you were one of the coaches there, and I just had a good time up there. And I remember watching the growth from you taking one location and then expanding into two locations, three locations, and just the vibe and the culture of the gym that I was at where you were teaching and managing. I was like, I really obviously love the fight lifestyle, but I saw you guys making it a career. And I was like, man, I want to be like Nick. I want to bring a gym or an industry like this to Bowmanville. Because Bowmanville and the area of all the gyms down here back then didn't have an established kind of like business sense to what they were doing, as well as having highly competitive athletes. I remember you had like Mark Holst was competing in Gatineau. Remember going to all those shows. So I was watching that whole come up. And I'm like, I want to take this exact kind of thing that you guys have and do it in Bowmanville. Just, getting sick of the industry I was working in. It was paying good. Had like a nice, at that time, what, 12 years ago now or 14 years ago now, I was making like a $55,000 salary job, benefits, paid vacation. So back then that was pretty good when I was in my early 20s. And I just remember just love the fight life. And I remember I walked into the gym one day and I'm just like, Nick, man, I think I want to open my own gym. This is where I'm at. And you're just like, just go into your job, quit and follow your dream and do it. And I quit the next day. Right? And I remember I came in, I told you, I'm like, Nick, I just quit. I'm going to do it. And so then I moved back to Bowmanville after that. And I partnered up with my brother at the time, who was also training, competing at a high level. And we decided to open a gym. And we did. So we opened in 2011 in Curtis. And, you guys were consulting at that time, I believe, or just getting started. And I didn't really know about it. But we tried opening a gym on our own, doing what we saw. We saw what you guys did, and I had a vision. I just didn't know how to do it. And we made all the mistakes you could imagine opening our first location. First biggest mistakes was I didn't know I could negotiate 3 months rent with the landlord. Met some greasy landlords. I ended up paying for all the construction myself, all the electrical from scratch. And I didn't realize till later, after years of going to different landlords and tenants, that I could negotiate some of that stuff to get put in. So these landlords took advantage of me, greased me, and then it was just the hard grind of opening the gym, not knowing what you're doing. And I remember about a year into it, you gave me a call and you're like, "Hey, listen, I'm doing coaching for businesses to help take them to the next level." And you gave me a couple pieces of advice at that time that really changed my course. Because I was living in the gym, lost my house, didn't have a car. I was down and out. Like me and Kara were living in bunk beds in the back of the gym behind yoga class. And I was still trying to compete and train at the same time, which I love. But you're like, listen, you need to pick one or the other. You can either have a successful gym or you can follow your fight career. Pick one. And I remember at that time, one of the guys I was training with and looking up to, Antonio Carvalho, I saw kind of him get to the UFC, get through 5 fights, and I saw kind of what's after the UFC. And that's when you said that to me, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I am going to focus on making a successful life out of this. And started coaching with you that year. I think we started 2012. And here we are, 2024, and a lot has changed.
Yeah, so yeah, it's so funny you cited, like what's after, like what's after fighting. And I think a lot of people don't plan for what's after fighting, and you're seeing fighters that go, because like let's be real here, like it's like 1% that like make it. They make it to like the big leagues. And of that 1%, it's like another 1% that like makes it to the top, like the top of the tier.
Yeah.
And those those aren't great numbers, and I've seen people fight, like well into their 30s, and I applaud them and I think it's amazing, but there's not like a big plan for like what's after, and they struggle. And I've seen famous fighters
Yeah,
struggle.
'cause that was the
Okay.
goal at the time. I'm like, oh yeah, let's keep fighting. Like, let's get to the pros, let's get to the UFC, and that was a good goal. And there's still parts of me when you look back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have fought more. I wish I would have trained more. But as I look back now and see all those guys that did make it to the UFC or the highest levels, I see what they're doing now. I'm much more happy with the path I chose. Yes, I gave up maybe an egotistical personal self goal, but I think where I'm at now, I'm able to support my family. I have a path for my son to come up, and I've developed my own athletes, and that's been that feels good as well. So
Yeah, I think, like I think everybody's path is unique to their own. So like I'm not going to knock one or the other, but I think I think the point like we're really trying to talk about right here is like what's after,
yeah,
and I still love doing this. So how do I make more of it after, And you know when we started working together, I think what you were saying 2012, like take us through like kind of, you took us through kind of like the early days, the hard days, the grind days. Take us through, your first location, or sorry, not your first location, but the Bowmanville location, and like the climb. Like, how did the climb start? What were some of the changes you made in your school? What were things like you didn't do before, but you're like, man, I did these 5 or 6 things, and it was the beginning of changing the game for me.
okay. So I think the main things, and the one key point that you kind of told me, and that I said I would do, and I did, I stuck to it, was once I stopped focusing on my own personal fight career. When I would be in camp and have a strength and conditioning coach or my jujitsu coach or whoever was coaching me, I would do everything they said. Because I wanted to make sure, like, if I'm going to get ready for a fight, they say do this, they say do that, I would do it. And I said, I'm going to take that same mentality and put it towards listening to what you advise me in and having my own coach for business. And I literally did everything you said. And it started with, I think the first thing we did was did a walkthrough in the gym. So you came in and you're like, I had all these checkered mats and crap on the walls. You're like, okay, everything off the walls, fresh coat of paint, order brand new mats. Made those investments. I think that was a big one. So then everybody's first impression of my facility was, okay, top notch, clean facility. The second thing you got me to do was relocate and find a different, lower priced facility, which I did, and I grew it from there. So gave notice to that greasy landlord, found a new location that was rent appropriate, and started going from there. The third big thing I think that I listened to that was one of the game changers was I didn't value myself and my pricing and my billing to where it should have been. I think at that time a membership at my gym was $70 a month. This was to sign up, so it was a $70 a month, and the clientele I was getting at $70 a month represented $70 a month clientele. You convinced me. You're like, and I remember we gave you pushback, but I'm like, you said to do it, we're going to do it. We upped our prices, basically doubling our prices, and we didn't lose any members. We ended up getting a higher end clientele. I think that would be number three. Number four is we incorporated the uniforms, which I think were a huge hit. The uniforms were good just to show our tribe and get the team together. And then I would say number five is you just put us together with systems and what to do every day and team builders, community events. You taught us how to get out in the community to get more members in, and I think those five things right there were some of the things that really started changing the direction of the gym moving forward. So I think we went from like 70 members, and then in the next, like, I think 3 to 6 months, we basically doubled, and it just kept doubling from there. And I'm on a waiting list now in 2024. So there we go.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know a ton of, like, I think everybody would want to have waiting lists for their schools if they could,
Yeah.
if it's functioning at the highest level. Um, it's still a challenge to this day as a martial arts business consulting coach to help people understand their value and the value they're bringing to other people in their life. And I know you believe this, and I know you've seen it, that in martial arts and through martial arts, we have the ability to make people the best versions of themselves,
Yeah.
and transform their lives. And then they become the strongest version of themselves, the most confident version of themselves, the healthiest version of themselves. And that is priceless in a lot of regards. It
Yeah.
gives a sense of community or a sense of tribe. As we say in legacy, it gives a massive sense of tribe. Um, Something else I want to touch on too, and I think this is really interesting for other gym owners to hear this, is like one thing you're really, really well known for is taking great care of your staff and your people that are with you and are behind you. Maybe like explain, like, and I know people would be like, oh, of course you got to take care of your people. Yeah, but people don't. People don't take care of their people. So, like,
Yeah.
why don't you talk a lot about like your experiences, why you do that, your mentality behind that, and the different things you're looking for to provide for your people, your staff.
Yeah, it's that's a tricky one because every single employee and staff that you get is different, and I think we're also heading into a day and age where I've noticed over the last, I'd probably say 2 3 years, that work life balance is something that's very important to people. And me and you talk about it as well. Like having that time with our families and our kids is a lot different than when it was 10 years ago. Me and you were working 8 days a week. It was gym, gym, gym. Nothing else matters. Shows every weekend. But now times have changed for me and you. But I'm also seeing that shift in other staff. So I'm trying to adapt with those times. And one of the things that we're doing right now, I just had a meeting with my team was coming up with more set schedules for my team. Some of my staff that work 40 hours a week, that we're doing 5 days a week, we're going to try to transition it to doing like 4 10s, so they can get 3 days off with their weekends. So these are things where it's just like adapting and going. But I think setting up like staff incentives have been really good. So I've moved some of my high performers into, somewhat of profit sharing or bonus programs. But just taking, I'm not, you know what, screw it. I'm going to knock people. It doesn't matter. But I remember I looked up to one guy on how he treated his staff and his people. And I just remember saying, I will never be like that guy, because I remember watching the growth of a massive industry. and a massive, massive thing up to many gyms and many people. And he wasn't taking care of his people right. And I saw that. And all of them were my coaches, or I looked up to them. And so once I saw them struggling and then leaving, it was really an eye opener to me to be like, hey, don't be that guy. You got to take care of your people that put food on your table. So that was really, I'll be totally honest with you, that was probably one of the things that I learned watching somebody else treat their people or their industry on what not to do. And I did completely the opposite. Bonus programs, paid vacation. They wanted to go on a trip because it was their passion, covering it. Taking that money and investing it into them, because they're going to do the work on the mats and in my four walls that'll directly reflect me later. And if I'm going to be in this for 10, 15, 20 years, I want to have those people grow with me instead of go elsewhere and then compete against me. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I can say because I've seen it, it's very inspiring, like uh, you take care of your staff, you take care of your students, you provide so many opportunities and also leadership opportunities as well. And I'm sure you agree with this. Like, it's important to empower the tribe under us, like to empower our students and to empower our people to be future instructors, assistant instructors, because we have so many people that have so many different skills than we have, and through leadership you can find a lot of fulfillment in your life as well. And I know a lot of people on our team certainly, like you just can't find fulfillment through just
Yeah.
leadership. You need to find it. There needs to be financial compensation as well.
Yeah.
But I definitely
I think
find
that's,
it's,
I think that's
it is a
number
balance.
one, to be honest with you, right now. And what I'm seeing is you have to take care of them financially. And I know there's industry standards, and I'm trying to go a little bit above industry standard, and paying them what they almost think they're worth. Because if they're working for something they don't feel valued for, so that's been something that I'm navigating right now. But I think we're in a day and age where prices are going up, inflation's going up. So I'm trying to take care of my people so they're not feeling those stresses and then looking elsewhere to do anything else.
Yeah, awesome. Something else I wanted to touch into here because like you went to, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. And different consultants say different things. And I used to be like this while I was younger, like grow, do everything, do all the things, have multiple locations, and this and that. Like you were somebody who had more than one location. You've downsized to one location. Why don't you just tell us at a glance, like, what are your thoughts on like having two schools versus one like mega school? What are your thoughts on that? And what
Yes.
was your experience like? What was your experience
Yeah.
like?
So it was good. So it was good while it lasted, and I opened up my Port Perry location about 8 years ago. And speaking, if we go back to like Antonio Carvalho, he was one of those guys that once he exited the UFC, tried opening a gym, did it for a couple of years in Port Perry, didn't work out, closed down, and then I'm like, all right, a couple of years later, I'm like, I'm going to go to Port Perry, I'm going to try this because I believe I have the business sense of this industry to make it happen, and we did that. Had a highly successful business. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the satellite location. It was making money, it was profiting, the community was great, the people were great. I just felt that you will have to stretch out your main players. So, like, as much as I wanted to be there once or twice a week, then Bowmanville would kind of get affected. So I felt, I was able to develop its own team and its own coaches, but having those aces, the Nick Castiglias or the Justin Bruckmans on the mat, it was hard. And I think the way I looked at it was it took a little bit of my attention off of Bowmanville, where I wanted to go all in on Bowmanville, expand my one main location, and consolidate. And I think the deciding factor was when I had my son, and I was just like, you know what, I want to be able to spend more time with my family. I'm going to go all in on one location, expand it, consolidate with the top coaches, and crush and understand my numbers at one gym to make it more profitable. Focus on better systems, focus on better staff training, clean up the numbers at one big facility, and then sell off the second location. So I was able to sell off my second location. I'm 2 minutes away from my main gym where I can be home in 5 minutes. And I'm putting 100% focus instead of 90% focus into this location. There's pros to it. If you're hungry and you got the time to do it and you're able to stretch yourself out, go for it. But if you're a kind of guy that wants to be able to take Sundays off or Saturday nights off and not be out coaching events, I don't know if two locations would be good for you. So I've decided to focus on one location, clean my systems up, and just crush it here. But two locations was good before I had a kid, but now I just want to focus on my family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we preach a lot about the family work-life balance, and I don't know if there ever is a balance.
Mm,
Well, one thing's for sure, like getting behind, as we talk about in the tribalnomics course, we talk about, the self and family as being the top two tiers of the
yeah,
things you got to think of in your life, and not the other way around, not work first, and I know you being a family man and loving husband, a lot of our self identity ties into our relationship with our, significant other or our kids, and that's what makes us feel fulfilled in our life, and
mm,
I think that's a decision, you're going to be proud of for your whole life, like nobody's ever going to say like, hey, I did this for my kids, I wasn't proud of that, and
yeah,
and I think that's super admirable, and it sets a great example for other business owners too, because and you've seen it, sometimes people got it backwards, they're
yeah.
putting everything else first except for the things that matter.
And I know one of
um
the things, before you go to the next questions, I know one of the things I was kind of talking to you in our consulting calls was, you know, navigating, is my school having 600 members good, or am I going to be better at 400 members with a cleaner, tighter system? So, like, almost like a less is more kind of mentality. I know we've been discussing that, but we'll chat about that more as we go.
Yeah, yeah. Like I find martial artists for whatever reason, they're like, I have a 8,000 square foot facility, like when like
Yeah,
ultimately like that doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything. Um, or, I have 1,500 students, between all my locations. Like, and again, like I don't know why people say these things. It's kind of silly. Or even when somebody says, I do a $60,000 a month gross. Well, that's no good if your expenses are 59, like that
yeah,
doesn't matter, you know.
yeah,
Um, I think like when we hear people say things like that, not to judge them. They're obviously proud. They're proud of what they have, or they're proud of what they've built, or they're just proud in general, and which is fine. Like be that way. However, like let's be real here. Like that doesn't matter. Like when we look as business owners at our business, we need to look at the whole picture. We need to
mm,
look at, okay, well, what's my gross? What's my expenses? What am I able to take home? What's left over later to invest in the future? For me to 10x later or 100x later, how
hmm,
much money can I put towards that later? Um, and I think, us as leaders, in the industry, I think there needs to be a re-education process. Like, let's stop talking about how big our gym is
yeah,
or how many students we have or how many gyms we have. Like, let's focus on, the numbers that matter and focus on those things,
yeah,
instead of talking
100%.
about like, you know what I mean? Kind of silly, I got this money, like who cares?
Yeah.
Like doesn't
Yeah.
that
I just
doesn't
know that
matter.
like it's on the reports that you originally gave us to fill out like every month. It's like, okay, number of students, da 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 da. So that was always the top line. So I'd always know that number. But
Hmm.
now it's funny, I'm sitting down with my general manager and I'm like, hey, we're gonna go from this amount of members to this amount of members. So I went in last week, I cleaned out like 10, probably 10 students that weren't good fits, that weren't fitting the mold, and cleaned them out. And I told her, I'm like, we're going from here down to here. We're going to clean everything up and it's going to be better. So that's what we're on right now, actually.
Yeah, and I'm happy you mentioned that before I move on to my next question, because I think gym owners, martial arts school owners, they get into the habit, or I say we because it's we as a community, all of us, we get into the habit. We're like trying to like make everybody fit all the time, and like, sure, we want to have a program and a place for everyone if it sees fit, but I think it's important to hear from other school owners that some people just don't fit the vibe of your tribe, and that's
Yeah.
okay. There's a better tribe out there for them, or a better martial arts school out there for them that's going to be a better fit for them. And I think it's important, not that students will listen to this, but some of our students may listen to this, or other students may listen to this, and they need to know that, like, that's going to happen. People are going to come, people are going to go. Not everybody's going to fit in the mold or not have the same beliefs of a certain school, and that's okay. They can move on to going to train at another school that is better suited for them. I think
100%.
we get hung up on it sometimes, we get hung up,
Yeah.
especially if you've put energy into someone or you've had a long-standing relationship with somebody, and then just
Yeah.
maybe that relationship has expired, and that's
Yeah.
okay, and I think we just need to, as we say, respect the expiration sometimes, right?
100%. You nailed it.
Okay, so next for me, and I've been lucky enough to like work with you on a few of these things. But I want to talk about it because I feel like school owners need to see, the school is one tool, to generate income, but
Yep.
you are for sure a master of running events. Okay. And I want to talk, I want to hear you talk about that a little bit. Talk about how you got into events, where you started, the highest level, because I think it's really cool because you're one of the few people in Ontario, or if not Canada, that has covered the whole gamut of events. Like, not many people in Canada have done all the different types of events that you have done. So maybe talk about that. Talk about how it's good for your school, how it's good for the bottom line, how it all works as like feeding the ecosystem. If you could share that with me.
Yeah, so it's good. It's a good thing to have for your team because you have your own events. It kind of builds up the energy of the tribe and gets everybody competing. I think I'm really enjoying now throwing jujitsu tournaments because since you've been focusing on legacy and everything up in Ottawa with your family. I've been able to now work with other partners. So I never thought I would have a partner that would work as hard as you until I met Janine. So now that I've partnered with Janine on the jujitsu show, she's really lit a fire under my butt to like get going and keep up. Where I thought before I'd be telling other people to keep up with me. So it's been really fun working on jiu-jitsu events with Janine. Those tournaments have been really good. Gets the families involved, gets the team involved. A lot of the parents really love being able to volunteer and help out. They really feel a part of it, and instead of just their kids. As for all the Muay Thai shows I find now are getting a little bit more challenging just with the amount of shows that are happening. So the matchmaking becomes its own full-time job, which can be very stressful because you're limited on your fighter pool. So I think we're heading into new times with shows where I think I'm going to slow down a little bit on the amount of shows that I throw and go a little bit more like precise, clean, and tight. Um, in last year, we ended up actually throwing the first professional MMA show in outside of like Prospect BTC. We myself and Brad Silva opened Durham Fight Series, and we threw the first ever pro MMA show in Oshawa, and that was the amount of work involved. It was basically a full time job. I tell everybody behind the scenes, like, I feel like it took a year off my life because of the amount of work that was involved in throwing a pro MMA show. But the success on it was amazing. But I remember having to give you calls, be like, Nick, what do I do here? Like, I am like, we're about to have to cancel this show. We've got 3 fights. We ended up with 12 fights, 4,000 plus spectators in attendance. We made a lot of investments into that event so that the future events would be more successful. But however, making all the basic investments into the amateur kickboxing shows and jiu-jitsu tournaments, we're now starting to see a good return. So it is a nice little side income for gym owners, and it's something where if you're able to work at home a little bit more too, and that was one of the things where I wanted to put energy into working on shows because I could do a lot of that work at home and have my one location now kind of run itself and pop in when I want to pop in. So you definitely got to be able to dot your T's, cross your I's. Can't be lazy. Shows are basically a whole other job on itself.
And something I would want to add, and I think a lot of like gym owners don't see it as like this. They see it kind of like as a nuisance for some people, but the extra events are amazing. Create amazing opportunities for our students to be more involved, not only just fighting, but coaching, volunteering, for our youth, our young guys, learning some
Yeah.
leadership, and feeling more valued, by, like we use the word tribe, feeling more valued by their tribe. What are your thoughts on that? On like it helping the ecosystem of the school and helping the student body?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like we've got like when we do our home show, we'll have parents volunteer to help fundraise on the snack bar for so they can raise money for their kids for the competition team. We'll have girls that might not compete that are just like loving the sport that they'll be the ring girls for the night. So their parents come, everybody has a good time. All the dads come out to have a beer and they want to volunteer to help take down the ring to be a part of it. Like it's just everybody has a role in there and it kind of really brings the team together. And then for everybody else that just wants to come watch the show and see the guys they train with fighting, it's just it's always been a good success, good team builders, and yeah, definitely. If you could pull off one a year is good. But I think I'm going to slow down a little bit and just really clean up what we do and when we do it.
Yeah, and you're talking about the saturation of shows. I was, as you know, but not everybody else knows, as I'm stationed in Ottawa, and I was working with the community here and speaking to all the different coaches and gym owners, to try and get like a yearly calendar of just Thai boxing shows. And there's 14 shows scheduled in 12 months in Ottawa, in just Ottawa, like just
Just
Ottawa.
That's what I
There,
mean. It's too much. Well, actually, your fighters need opportunity. I get that, but like as a matchmaker and a promoter, it does get very, very challenging. Like I've got guys reaching out to me, like, "Hey, can you fight on my show?" I'm like, "Aren't you throwing a show like the week after as well? You're doing two shows in a month, and you want me to send fighters to both?" I'm like, "Slow down here." Like it's getting a little bit much out there, and it's very challenging. And I think how I'm starting to work is I'm sending athletes to promoters or people that throw shows that have sent athletes to our shows because there's only a limited amount. Like if I have like one fighter, say Jacob Pigum, Karate Kid there, he can only fight 6 times a year. So I have to look through and be like, all right, Nick has a show in Ottawa. This guy has a show here. This guy has a show. I'll designate him for those events because that's all he can fight instead of answering messages for every weekend for fighters. I would love to see a little bit more. I don't know, but the maybe we just need more fighters in the pool.
I don't know. 14 events in 12 months in one city. That's a lot.
But
That's a
it's too
lot of events. And that's not even, I'm sure other people aren't in the mix yet and they want to have a show too. So it's a lot.
it's too much.
Um, moving on, probably the last thing I really wanted to talk about is, you have done this amazing, thing for the community, and I think this story, and I'm, lucky to be close to you. I know the story. I know how it came about, and it's kind of a heartbreaker of a story, you know, about your hearts for martial arts, how that started, how it got its kickoff, how many kids you have sponsored, the change it's made in the community, and just kind of like where that's headed to. I'm super interested to hear that and share that with everyone as well.
Okay, so how it started, I would say number one would be, you know, when we first started the gym and I'd be working the front desk, or people would catch me at the front desk. any kind of sob story, or and it would happen all the time, any kind of sob story, or oh, my kid's in gymnastics and I can't afford the extra, sorry, we can't do it, or whatever it may be. I'm going through a divorce, I wish my kid could train but we can't afford it. I was giving away memberships at my own gym for years to anybody that would give me a sob story. And a lot of them were justified, a lot of them were actual legit stories, but some, my staff started figuring out that people know they could take advantage of me, and I would just give it to them because I want to see those kids train. So I remember once my wife got me off the front desk, the gym started making more money, but I still wanted to find a way to help people out. Now, COVID happened, and my jiu-jitsu coach, Justin Bruckman, who was a staple in the community for community work, helping with, women's shelter, sponsoring kids, food donations, just helping in any way he could. He was really known in his community for doing that. And when he shut his gym down during COVID, because COVID crashed a lot of the top gyms in my area, or like staples in the community, Motor City Boxing, Bruckman Martial Arts, like it was a devastating time. But once I saw him close down his gym and all the community work that would be lost, I'm like, what can I do to really help out and then get the right people involved? So I figured instead of just me doing it, with Bruckman having such a history and success, and people know that he's given back so much, I had to sit down with him and a couple others. And I remember I picked your brain on it too, about putting together a not-for-profit charity called the Hearts for Martial Arts Foundation, where we would raise funds, put it into an organized pool, because Bruckman is not organized. Bruckman doesn't have the business sense, but I did. But I knew he had the passion and the heart, and if I could put it all together, then we could start like actually making a difference. So we went through the motions of opening a registered not-for-profit, getting the website built, getting our social media pages done, getting a board of directors together, sitting down and making a plan. And then when we launched the Hearts for Martial Arts Foundation, to date, we have raised over $40,000. We have sponsored 40 kids across Ontario, and we've put them into clubs, World Championship Martial Arts, you name it, Loyalist Martial Arts. Half the gyms in your legacy page we've donated to. Napanee, all over. Rob Reed, Adio's gym, Fernando's gym. We've sent them thousands of dollars so that they could use those funds to find, because I know every gym owner has that story. And if I asked you right now, I'm like, Nick, I know you got somebody in your gym that is quitting or this is happening. I am going to leave it in your judgment to sponsor somebody. So today, we've got 40 kids enrolled under the Hearts for Martial Arts Foundation. And we have a lot of other companies now coming in offering us big gifts. Like we just had a company called CW Investments give us 2 boxes to the Leafs and Raptors game. Those are $10,000 prize packages. So we're currently doing a raffle right there, and then all the funds that come in, we're going to be able to hit some other gyms and get some kids enrolled. So that's been good. It's a feel good. It really makes you feel good because you are making a difference. And I have some kids in my gym that have been sponsored like over the last like 8 years, or just me sponsoring them on my own. And I've seen them go from like pre-teen through their teens in our gym. And if we would have lost them at that teenage year, their parents, with the drug problems they had and where they were at, they could have been on a bad road. And like guys like me, and I had to look back too, like I was given a free ride at Bruckman's gym. He helped me out when I couldn't afford it. And if I didn't have that, where would I have been? And you've given me your free time on the pads when I was in Ottawa, and it's made a difference. So it's time for us to give back. It feels good, and it's just something that really makes me know when I look at the end of the day, like we crunch the numbers in our business. We need to make money. We need to pay our team. We need to pay ourselves. But then I'm like, what can I do that's not going to so much come out of my pocket, but the community can work together to make a change, and we've done that. So people can check out the websites, heartsformartialarts.com, and it's specifically for martial arts facilities and martial arts kids that we're going to be doing, because we've had kids. What's the one people's Jumpstart? When people
Yeah.
try to go through Jumpstart, it's paperwork, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
nuisance.
pain.
And I have this one grandma who had to take care of her granddaughter because the parents ended up in prison, and she was just telling me she's having a hard time filling out the paperwork. It doesn't get back in time. So I'm like, I tried to eliminate all that. I'm going straight to the gym owners of facilities across Ontario, and I'm just being like, I trust your judgment right now. You guys pick who it is, and we're spreading it out around all those gyms. And so far, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and I think, like, man, I think it's amazing what you're doing and in truth, like let's be real here, like most of the amazing martial arts school owners that are out there, they're giving away memberships,
All the time.
every year to
Yep.
help out. Um, for people who have been struggling or maybe, have suffered a family tragedy or so on and so forth, to try and take care of those kids and make a difference in their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely amazing, like thank you so much, for sharing that and just thanks for what you're doing for the community. I think it's so like powerful, because like in 40 minutes you're giving a snapshot of like
Yeah.
your life, and you're talking about all the hard times. You went through some of the hard times. You went through the climb. You went through having two locations, one location to running in-house events, to running amateur events, to running professional mixed martial arts events, to running Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, and wrapping up, towards the end, talking about the charity that you had started to change your community, have an effect right at home. I think you have an amazing story, and it's like my pleasure to have you on here to share it. So before we wrap up, let's say, you have gym owners, okay? Because like let's be real here. A lot of martial arts school owners, I would say, like, if we had to pick a percentage, probably 50% are just paying the bills. Maybe more, maybe 60, Like I've worked with a lot of gyms and when they start, like they're just getting by, they're not making a whole lot. And they're taking a chance by like hiring for consulting and that because they're like I know I need help, but this is going to cut it pretty close, for the guys that are having a tough time making it by. Is there any like couple words of advice, like a couple top tips, any thoughts in the top of your mind that you would recommend to the gym owners that have been having a hard time, that have been having, that have been struggling on some things that they could do to either change their business right away or just like what you think in the top of your mind when I say that
Yeah, I think
situation.
number one, I see a lot of, and it's kind of like I talk about it with our jujitsu guys, and every grading we do, we talk about all the blue belts that are going to get their blue belt and quit. I think number one, we see a lot of people that they consult, or someone like me, like I've gotten my black belt in consulting jujitsu with you, and I'm still staying on. I think guys that may sign up. Once you get to a certain level, don't stop, continue. For those that are struggling, I think Extreme Ownership, reading that book was a real game changer for me. Extreme Ownership, like not blaming anybody else but yourself. Don't make any excuses. Quit drinking, get in the gym, be in your gym 24/7, do all the hard work yourself, do all the extras, and leave no excuses. Like when I first started and was struggling, I moved my ass into the gym and I did the work until I was to a point where I could be like, all right, I'm ready to slow down. But you know, don't leave any stone unturned. Do every single thing you got to do. If you find yourself watching TV, you should be out handing out flyers, knocking on doors. I was knocking on doors, doing bottle drives, handing out free lessons, trick or treating, handing out fucking free 1 week passes. So if you are not doing everything it takes, then you've got to blame yourself. If you want to be successful, then you got to put in the work, leave no excuses unturned, read Extreme Ownership because there's nobody else to blame but yourself.
Bam.
I guess that's straight up, straight up.
Well, that's awesome.
Uh,
Crew Brendan Kalijundic. I just want to, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to be your friend and like to work with you and work with your team throughout the years. And this is awesome as I knew it would be for our first podcast on the Martial Arts Business Podcast. Is there any last things you just want to share before we sign off here?
no, everything you just said nice about me, right back at you, Nick. You were the one I looked up to, wanted to be like, and here we are this many years later. And thank you for guiding me and checking on me. And answering my calls at 5 a.m. when I'm asking if you're up, I need help. So, I wouldn't be here without you, and half of it's because of you. So thanks for all you do to you and Sam, and you know, proud of everything you've accomplished with Legacy as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Guys, the Martial Arts Business Podcast. Hope you enjoyed our first episode. Okay, make sure to follow Legacy Martial Arts Consulting, Instagram, Facebook. Check us out on all our channels and share this podcast around. Thank you again, Crew Brendan Kalijundic, the leader of the Kalsamrit Army. It has been a blast. Have a great day, everyone.
Awesome. Peace out, guys.
Bam. Love, how do I stop this thing?